Hey everybody, it's Mark Puryear here. I am on yet another one of my little adventures. Right now I'm in Oak Creek in Sedona, Arizona. Beautiful area. I'll show you guys this real quick. Look at that. Just amazing. Beautiful views, beautiful area. I love it out here. It's just fantastic. I wonder if I can see some fish in the water. But anyway, I wanted to talk to everybody about what we've had going on, what we've been doing with the Norton Society. As you may have seen, we have the Epic Method video that's come out. We're working on building Kvasser Academy. That's coming up. We're going to be doing that very soon. I'm hoping to have first enrollment starting in June, open enrollment starting in June, and then actually building it out and having it ready to go for Mystery Midsummer, which is in July, right? And anybody wants to know about that, they can just message us and we'll tell you about the mystery calendar and all that stuff. But another thing that I'm doing is I'm working on a book of law, right? Really delving into the research and understanding what is Odinic law, how does it work, how do the Germanic law codes come into play there, how does all that, sort of come together. We've seen law codes and all kinds of different ideas and concepts get passed around over the years, and it was like it's time to actually delve in and figure out how did their laws work, how did they have concepts of law, and really breaking apart a lot of the New Age myths and stuff. I've seen people they say, well, we don't have a bunch of thou shalt nots, right? And it's like, well, I mean, you can say thou shalt not all you want to, and it sounds, condescending, and it sounds like, you're attacking the Christian faith and their 10 commandments. And that sounds all good to a lot of people. But the fact of the matter is that every law that has ever existed says don't do something. There's no laws that say you should go do this. It's always don't do this. So even though you can translate that into a thou shalt not, it's saying don't do this. Don't rape people. Don't kill people. Don't do bad things, So that's gonna come out, and we're gonna demonstrate those law codes. We're gonna demonstrate the concept of law, on how polytheist law works, looking at everything from the Hammurabi Code, which is obviously foreign, but understanding that was a polytheist law and the earliest law written before Christianity even came around, and demonstrating how that connects to the gods of those people and how they, manifested that in a religious sense. And it does manifest as a religious sense. When they were writing it, the opening words of the code is a prayer to the gods. So we'll go into all that, explain all that, demonstrate it. But one of the things that I learned when I was putting it together is really starting to understand how Europe was converted to Christianity. It's kind of an interesting take on things, because everything is always more complex than you make it out to be. People who are simpletons, they always like simple answers, simple things that are, it just kind of solves the riddle. It's one solution, one idea, and everything is always more complex than that. So really, what I was looking at when I was trying to understand this, because I'm reading these law codes and I see, they would basically take ancient Germanic laws, and we know they were ancient Germanic laws because we can delineate that, connect it to lore, show other sources that we know are polytheist, archaeology and things like that connect to different things and ideas, runestone inscriptions, stuff like that, that we know are polytheist. And then you can find these things connected to the law codes. And then what happens is that the Christians would adopt these law codes and then add their own laws to them and add their own structure to it. That basically means that you're going to follow religious law, you're going to follow the laws that the churches imposed upon people. And it really shows you how these conversions kind of took place. That a lot of it was by force. There are some Christians out there who try to claim that there was no force, that there was mostly peaceful, blah, 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 blah. Just like, today when they say mostly peaceful. But It's not true. We see the laws like, outlawing people. Outlawing was like the worst punishment you could get. It basically meant that they could just hunt you down like a dog because you weren't human anymore, and they could do whatever they wanted to you. They could torture you, they could maim you, they could kill you. You're outlawed, you're not human anymore, And so they did that, and that's in the law codes, and we found it and seen that, right? But another thing is, like, you have to figure out is how were they successful? What was the successful mechanism that came into place that allowed Christianity to proliferate throughout Europe? And you really start to understand it when you're looking at a lot of these different aspects, a lot of these different things that they put into place. And what I believe is that the great innovation that took place is basically a saturated propaganda machine, okay? And this propaganda machine exists today, and it has spread itself into every aspect of everything. It has to spread itself into every aspect of everything. That's what makes it successful, okay? Usually before propaganda's always existed, but propaganda always was like top down. It was like the kings and queens would, and they'd have bards and storytellers and all that stuff. And propaganda isn't always a bad thing. Sometimes it's just stuff that just tells you your government's good, and it keeps people from revolting and attacking and being miserable and hating each other and all that stuff, right? But the propaganda was really, they started to understand it because the Romans had been working on propaganda for centuries. They had worked on different techniques and all this stuff, and their main thing was just keeping people from rebelling, keeping rebellions from happening, keeping people from, rioting in the streets, keeping them from attacking Roman soldiers, keeping them from doing things that would break up the cohesion of the empire. And so they employed a lot of different methods in doing that. You can see that in the Agricola of Tacitus. In his Agricola, he breaks down like how the generals would go in and use different techniques to keep people at peace. They would, two ends against the middle. They'd work one tribe against the other. They would, convince them to accept Roman extravagancies, all these different things, get them to accept the styles of Rome. We see later the Euhemerist movement kind of develops out of that, where people start thinking that Rome is everything. They start trying to tie their country to Rome. They start developing myths of their connection to Rome as well, such as the Trojan War myth that developed, and they say like Priam was Odin, and like you see in the Prosetta and stuff like that, that all these were just the heroes of the Trojan War, and that in itself connected it to the founding of Rome. And there's a huge web of that, right? But what we see is that the Christians develop apologetics, right? And they develop monasteries, and they put them all over the place. And the idea of it is to propagandize all of Europe in every aspect, from the royalty to the merchants, to the science, to everything, And I think no one had ever really done that before. Top to bottom, every single facet of civilization has to be propagandized. It has to be saturated with a propaganda. So every single little facet of it has to be, manifested and brought through the lens of that, right? I do see a big fish there. You guys probably wouldn't be able to see it, but he's there in the water. Anyway, so like they literally just saturate the entire civilization. Every single aspect of the civilization is brought under, this propaganda. So, and that's, the nature of apologetics. They can call it apologetics. Sounds like a really fancy word, but it's just propaganda. How do we keep this going? And you'll see a lot of that today. The church puts out a lot of things, and Christians put out a lot of things that simply aren't true. That is propaganda. You remember like the Bible codes of the 90s, and there was like that time when they had that box they said had Jesus's brother's name on it and stuff like that, and they'll find relics, and they have the apocalyptic prophecies and all that stuff, and all that stuff is just meant to raise controversy, get people scared, get people worried. I totally have always believed that the satanic panic of the 70s was a lot of that was driven by church propaganda, that it was just get the Christians scared. The devil's coming. You need to defend yourself. You need to get back into church. You start seeing church numbers waning, you have to get them back in there. So you scare them and you make them think that all these kids are, worshiping the devil, and they're all that stuff. It's a constant cycle of controversy that never, ever, ever ends. And you have to keep that constant cycle of controversy always going in order to keep people in line. You keep one side angry, and you keep the other side angry at the people who are angry, and then that side's like trying to feed into it, and that side's trying to stop it, and it just keeps it going, And this is a cycle that has existed for 1,000 years, and it really, when you see it, and you see the patterns of it, you really start to understand like what's been going on. Why is it that people believe in such weird things? Why is it that people, you see these people and you're like, how could a person with any lick of sense believe in and accept what's being said here? This is nonsense. It's just complete ridiculous nonsense. You have some religious groups that believe in magic underwear, and you have some people that handle poisonous snakes, and you have other ones that believe that they're going to fly up into the air and go on spaceships, and they have people that have developed cults and communes and things that are dangerous and harmful to people, and people buy it. And that is because these are people who have incrementally, over generation after generation after generation after generation, have just been fed the most ludicrous nonsense propaganda for 1,000 years, and it's starting to bubble up. It's starting to become a thing where there are people who can't even think without the machine thinking for them. And people who are immune to that, and there's always going to be people who are immune to it, who can see through it. They're just dumbfounded. They're like, I don't understand how this person believes this. How do these people get into this? How does this happen? Well, it's because all this stuff that's out there, they buy into it. And that's literally what has happened. These people don't spend billions and billions and billions of dollars putting these message out, because no one believes it. They put it out there because people do believe it, and it makes them money and gets them power, And so those messages that you see, whenever you see them, if you are immune to it, or if you're questioning that propaganda, just know that there's always a reason for the topic of the day. There's always a purpose behind it. It's never been benevolent, It's always like, I'm going to get some money or power out of this. Like, I can see a pathway to power and money. And that's what happened with the kings and queens of Europe. They were the first ones to get converted, and they saw this, and they were basically told, this is a way to get rid of any possibility of rebellion. You have all of these tribes, all these different groups, all of these different clans and all that stuff, and they sort of segment away all the power, right? And that gives them power. And what you can do is take that power away from them by putting everybody under the banner of this one religion, right? And then you constantly tell them that this religion it's all about peace and love, and everybody's going to be the brotherhood of man and all that stuff. And it sounds great, right? And but then meanwhile, you can do whatever you want. You can go slaughter as many people as you want to. You can kill people. You can do whatever you want to, because you're going to have all the power, right? And you're going to take the power away from all these chieftains and clans and all that stuff. And then they won't have any power. And the first thing they did was they took the power away from the tribes, then they took the power away from the clans, and now they're taking the power away from the family, and they just want you to be individuals, because individuals are powerless. There's nothing they can do to defend themselves, right? There's nothing. And that's why I try to tell people till I'm blue in the face, you have to become a trustworthy person. You have to be able to take oaths and keep them. You have to be able to stand with other people and work as a collective in order to fight back against this, because there is no other solution. There's no other way out of this quagmire, right? You have to take your power back, because this is the machine, and it's an ancient machine. It has been around, for a few thousand years now. Christianity first developed in the BC era in Rome. So we're looking at not the BC era, obviously not the BC era. It would be the AD era, but because we're talking about after Christ, but it was a few hundred years after Christ that it started to develop in Rome. And those philosophies and stuff like that blossomed and became part of the Roman Empire, and it was a weapon, and it's been used as a weapon ever since. And it's going to be, it becomes something that blossoms and blooms. And that's why you see the message is always the same, even when they strip the religion out of it. Even when they take the religion out of the philosophy, they're always saying the same stuff. It's all about peace. It's all about love. It's all coming together and being as one, right? Let's all come together. And you'll see some of these people who, are political demagogues and stuff like that, and they'll say things like, it's division that creates tyranny, and it's like, no, it's not. Division is a good thing. The reason why division is a good thing is because division is sovereignty, and sovereignty is the power of the people. In order for the people to be sovereign, they have to be able to separate and do their own thing and build their own enclaves and develop their own tribes and their own families and all that stuff, because that empowers them, because then they're all bound together by family and blood and oath and all that stuff, and that empowers them. It's unity that takes away your power, because unity is the idea that you're all under one banner and you're all just individuals and you all work for the state and you all do what you're told and you're all, all connected under a single ideal or a single philosophy or something like that, right? And that's the power of the machine, okay? And that's what people have believed for so long. And there's people watching this. You're watching this right now. There are people right now who are just like, there's no possible way. There's no possible way that division could be a good thing. There's no possible, I will not believe that. And that's because these people are incredibly generationally propagandized, right? They can't even fathom that. And the thing I tell people is that there has never, ever been a dictator ever who rose up and said, hey, you know what I'm going to do with my power? I'm going to divide up all these people into different little enclaves and leave them alone, right? That's never happened. All dictators, their message is we will all be united under one single ideology, under one single leader, and one single power, and that power is me, right? And that's why that message is pushed and proliferated and becomes part of the civilization and becomes, everything. And it's always, these flowery, pretty words that gets people, connected to each other in a way that is not healthy, because then they become violent. Then they start attacking people. Then they start thinking, I have to defend this with my life. I will kill for this. I will kill anything that moves, And we've seen that in all of the wars, all the things people talk about religion does, all the things that people talk about evil political movements, all that stuff is driven by that propaganda. By that propaganda that we're all going to be one, that we all love each other, that we're all going to come together. And they're like, why don't we just try? We could just try. And it's like, well, you have tried. You've tried 1,000 times over. And every time you try, you slaughter a bunch of people, because what you're talking about is not what you're doing. You're going against nature. You're going against the idea of families and clans and tribes and people united under real things that are real and concrete, that you can trust and have faith in, because they're things that are bound by honor and integrity and blood. And it's not perfect. I'm not saying there's no such thing as a perfect system, right? But I do know that there's absolutely historical evidence and proof, even in the modern era, that when people worked in communities and they worked together and they came together under families and bound each other to one another, then massive powers had a very, very difficult time subduing them. And that's why they hate it. That's why they don't want that. That's why the idea of that is the most repulsive, most horrible thing, and they speak about it constantly. Constantly. Any form of collectivism, any form of tribalism, anything like that is the most demonic, evil, horrible thing that exists, because it takes away the power of the state. And it's the only thing that does. And that's why they had to be the first thing that got eradicated by the machine. So anyway, that's my rant for today. I just wanted to get on here. I know I haven't been on a while because I was working on the Epic Method video for a very long time. And so I finally got that done, and we got these other projects coming up. It's all this amazing stuff that's coming down the turnpike. So you guys stay tuned. All right, have a good day.